What up, family? You already know who this is, your queen stuff, Msnique, also known as Msniquerevamp. Look, I wanted to come to y'all and share this story, my experience actually. I was looking through social media and I came across a young woman who unfortunately was pregnant and had miscarried the baby. So because of this new Roe versus Wade law, that woman unfortunately was, she had to carry her unalived fetus in her body for 2 weeks.
Wait a minute. I'm back at the phone. Let me.
And that's, watching her story triggered me. You know, I'm on here always talking about all kinds of different things, and I don't know that I've ever shared my experience. And while my experience was many years ago, I could never imagine having had to go through what this woman had to experience. So I'm gonna go ahead and play her video right here, and then I'm gonna come back and share my own experience. Okay? So give me a minute. Watch this.
Marlena Stell and A.D. Da Silva have always wanted a little brother or sister for their daughter, Adelina. Instead, what they got was a nightmare because of a Texas anti-abortion law.
I get so angry that I was treated this way because of laws that were passed that by men who have never been pregnant and never will be.
Stell's nightmare started out as a dream come true. After months of trying, she became pregnant late last summer.
We were super excited because we didn't think I could get pregnant.
An ultrasound at 7.5 weeks showed all was well. But at an ultrasound 2 weeks later,
She said, there is no heartbeat, there is no viable pregnancy.
Stell asked her doctor for a standard treatment, a surgery to remove the fetal remains. She says her doctor refused. That surgery, commonly known as a D&C, is the same procedure used to abort a living fetus.
She said, well, because of the new law that's passed, you're going to have to get another ultrasound for me to be able to even do anything for you.
Overwhelmed emotionally and physically,
The pain would get so severe it would be hard to walk.
she went to get a second invasive ultrasound at an imaging center, describing it later in a YouTube video.
Someone shoves a wand in my sensitive area and tells me, hey, you lost your baby again. I shouldn't have to go through that twice.
So you had to hear it twice that you lost a baby.
It's gut-wrenching. Sorry.
That's okay.
Because you already know what you're going to see. It's just like seeing it twice, being told that you're not going to be a mom.
Even after that second ultrasound, would your obstetrician give you the surgical procedure?
No. No.
Stell had to go get yet another ultrasound showing her dead fetus. So you were walking around carrying a dead fetus?
And just emotionally carrying it around and just knowing that there's nothing you could do, it just feels very, it's like I can't grieve or move past it because I'm just walking around carrying it.
Dr. Lillian Shapiro has been an OBGYN in Atlanta for more than 30 years. When a woman is walking around with a dead fetus for weeks because she can't get a surgical procedure, what's the danger to her?
She can develop an infection that can make her sterile and never able to have children again.
Or even worse,
And the baby dies inside. The baby starts to release parts of its tissue that can get into the mother's blood supply. It can cause organ failure. It can cause death.
in Texas and some other states, a doctor who does the right thing and surgically removes a dead fetus could be vulnerable to an expensive lawsuit.
Any private citizen can walk into court and say, I think Dr. Smith performed an abortion.
And citizens are incentivized to bring such cases. They can win more than $10,000. And even when doctors can prove the fetus was dead, the doctor still has to be responsible for their own legal fees.
They're going to lose even though they win. And that's the chilling effect. They face this specter of potentially endless, ruinous litigation that they just can't stop, they can't avoid, they can't preempt.
As I spoke with Stell, I thought back to how between my second and third children, I had a miscarriage that was handled very differently. They saw there was no heartbeat. They did a D&C. It allowed me to move on quickly and get pregnant again. And then I got pregnant again, too.
Right, and that's great. And that is the story that we want to hear from people.
Stell was not so lucky. She did finally manage to find a doctor to perform her D&C, but it took 2 weeks. She worries the nightmare could happen to her again. Are you trying to get pregnant again?
No.
Why not?
I'm worried about getting infected, have something happen to me, and then my daughter's left without her mom.
Now they're contemplating moving away from Texas, away from their extended family, just so they can try to get pregnant again.
All right, guys. So as you can see, her experience was horrendous. So I just basically want to share my story. I've had 2 instances in my life where I've lost a child. Okay, I had a stillborn when I was 15 years old. Okay, I was 6 months pregnant when that happened. So I had a fully developed baby. At 15, and that having happened to me so much, if you all haven't read my memoir, If My Past Wasn't So Dark, My Future Wouldn't Shine So Bright, honey, by 15, I had already endured so much shit psychologically. I wasn't wrapped tight anyway. My baby was the only hope that I had, literally. Like, past that part. I would never have been able to live through today's times having the experience that this woman had. Never. And I have to tell you that a couple months after my situation with my stillborn, I had tried to unalive myself. Okay, so psychologically I was extremely vulnerable, and there's no way in hell I would have been able to make it through. No way in hell would I have made it through any of the stuff that this woman just shared with you all, or with us all, that she had to go through. 2 weeks with a fetus. I had a full baby. No. So I can totally relate to her from a psychological perspective, and how it's almost like, overkill, for lack of better words, being told over and over and over again, that this is not going to be a favorable situation for you. This is not going to be the outcome you had planned for, and then no one doing anything about it. Like, that's really fucked up, America. Okay? I literally had to take a moment to gather myself before I had another situation with, this was actually a couple of years ago. Cameron, you guys, is our youngest child. He is 5, almost 6. And just to sum this story up, my pregnancy was extremely high risk. My husband and I already knew this was going to be the last one. If y'all don't know, I'm a mom of 10. We already knew that this was going to be it. This was going to be the last one. And with that being said, complications happened, and I ultimately had to have a C-section. I've never had a C-section before. Prior to me actually going to labor with Cameron, my husband was going to get a vasectomy or whatever. So we had already had that plan for, birth control moving forward. Well, when the unique position or opportunity came that I was going to have a C-section, I was like, my husband and I got together and we discussed that it would probably just be better for them to go ahead and do the C-section at the same time. Do the tubal ligation at the same time as the C-section, and that way I don't have to recover and then come back and have another surgery, because that was the whole point of him doing the vasectomy. With that being said, by all intents and purposes, according to all the documents, the tubal ligation was done. Well, a couple of months later, I ended up starting to get really, really, really sick, which, by the way, you guys, I did not mend well from that C-section in the first place. So we have to keep that in mind. I could make this really long, and I don't want to. But if y'all want to know way more detail about that whole experience, by all means, hit me up and I will do another video. But I'm trying to keep this to a minimum because I'm trying to push forward a point, right? The rules and the laws and shit that they have put in place opposite this Roe versus Wade. I'm not saying that all of it is ludicrous. I'm not saying that some of those rules shouldn't be put in place. I'm saying that some of this shit just don't make sense. And we can't keep treating everybody like it's a one-size-fit-all. That's where America gets it wrong a lot of the times. Treating everybody like they the same. We're not the same. We don't have the same situations. We don't have the same outcomes. We don't have the same allergies. We don't have the same reactions. We don't have the same fucking basic needs. And to treat everybody as a one-size-fits-all is just absolutely horrendous. And somebody with 23 years of medical experience in various positions, it is beyond appalling. Now, after I had Cameron, a couple of months later, I got extremely sick, and we couldn't figure out why and what was going on. And this wasn't like pregnancy sicknesses, y'all. This was like real weird, something ain't right. I'm fainting, like just weird shit. It was just weird. And obviously, no one's testing me for pregnancy because I had just had a tubal ligation. Long story short, I ended up pregnant. I was pregnant. Not only was I was pregnant with twins. And, honey, once we got past the whole initial shock of it, that whole little thing was a whole situation all on its own. Y'all, it's a whole conversation by itself. That pregnancy is a whole conversation by itself. But with that being said, and yes, in case you just called, yes, I ended up pregnant with twins after having a tubal ligation. Months before, not years. So this ain't a situation where your tubes can come apart and they ain't have enough time to do none of that shit. Okay. With that being said, you all, tragically, and it was very tragic. It was very traumatic. I ended up miscarrying those babies. It was a very dramatic experience. And I'm saying that as a person who has had a stillborn, okay, at 6 months gestation. And I'm telling you that miscarriage was extremely dramatic for me, okay? There were times during my pregnancy with the twins that it was considered non-viable, okay? They couldn't find a heartbeat. They saw the sac, they couldn't find heartbeats, they couldn't find a pulse. There were things, that's why I'm telling y'all that whole situation is a whole conversation all by itself. But I was offered a DNC. And I chose that if this was not a viable pregnancy, because I wasn't convinced that it wasn't viable, I chose that if it wasn't viable, that I would allow my body to do its natural thing, which would be ultimately push out whatever is not good for me. That was a choice I had because there was an option to make that choice. For this woman to have walked around for 2 full weeks with an unalive fetus in her, baby, I could never imagine. I did it for a day and a half, and this is while they were actively inducing me, and I couldn't even keep it straight. So I'm saying all this to say, y'all, we gotta do better. We have got to do better. And we're not the exception. There are hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of women who have had stories like mine and like hers, who should not be punished because something that God set to happen didn't come to fruition. This is your girl, Msnique, also known as Msniquerevamp. This is a very emotional, I can't make this shit up. I don't know what you all need to do, but somebody needs to do something because no one should be allowed or forced to carry around something that is unalive. I love you.
I'm better than love.
All right, guys, if you're not already, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, Facebook Reels, LinkedIn. Honey, I'm everywhere. And this has been your girl, your queenster, Msnique, also known as Msniquerevamp. And this is I Can't Make This Shit Up. Tell me what you think in the comments.